Well, you know, while I was reviewing some of the video I shot a couple of days ago, I noticed there were some things I failed to mention, or that you may be interested in knowing, or some things I forgot to point out, given that this is reality TV for model railroaders. This is all unscripted, so there's some things that I just completely spaced off. So you may be wondering where I got this PC tie from. PC tie material, they come in strips of 1 foot long. This obviously isn't 1 foot long, it's been cut down, but I get it from a company called Clover House out in California. I believe it's Sebastopol, California, and it's a mom and pop operation, so you have to it's been a while since I visited their website, but they do snail mail only. They don't do Visa or anything like that, so you have to send a self-addressed stamped envelope, and they get their catalog and then order from the catalog and send a check or a money order to get your supplies. But they have from what I understand, they have a good reputation. I think they specialize mostly in decals, specialty decals and stuff like that, but they also do the PC tie material, and you can also get this stuff at a company called fasttracks.com, and they sell PC ties there, and I think they're pre-cut to length, and they got PC ties for turnouts for 2 and stuff like that, and they also make some pretty slick hand-laid track jigs. I got one because I have a whole bunch of number 6 turnouts I want to make for a yard. Good grief, I think I've got about 50 or 60 of them to make, so it's well worth the investment if you have a whole bunch of turnouts to make. So it enforces consistency and saves you from some of the tweaking I've had to do to get this thing to get my custom curved turnout to work right. So it's a nice handy little thing to have if you want to spend the money on the jig and have a lot of the same turnout to make. Anyway, the rail is Microengineering Code 55. I got that from N-Scale Supply, and you could probably order that through your regular hobby shop too if you want to go through your local guys rather than the internet. And the paper I've been using is waterproof sandpaper. I keep calling it emery paper, and I think that's an older term for it, but it's waterproof sandpaper. 600 grit for getting some of the worst scratches and the solder off the track, because you can gunk up, especially when you're making a frog. It gets up on here and you want to clean that off. And then 1500 grit to just polish it all off. So you probably don't want to go lower than 600, just because you don't want to take off too much off the top of your track. So this works fine. So that's what I've been using. And I ran into some issues with the frog as I was after I put it together, and there were some tweaks I did, and I don't think I was terribly clear about describing what I did. But there's some things you may run into, especially if you're not using a jig like a Fast Tracks jig and you're doing what I'm doing. But some things that you may need to take care of or adjust are moving this rail in or out to keep the inside of the wheel from catching the edge of this rail here, of your wing rail. Another thing I did was take a needle file and just kind of grind a little bit off the edge, off the side of the wing rail here, so the cars would go smoothly. You can also widen the gap here, you know, the distance from the guardrail to the stock rail, to accommodate any jiggling that you have, or this, if you have this too close, it can sometimes pull the wheel up and over off the wing rail. So yeah, you can play with this too, make adjustments there, pull it out a little bit, things like that. So anyway, I finally gotten this tweaked to satisfaction, that it's now running smoothly. Also expanded my testing spot here because I got sick of re-railing this stupid thing because I kept running it off the end of the track. But another good test to do to test the integrity, get this railed, test the integrity of your frog is to take your car, take a freight car, and hold it down, put some pressure down on it, and then try to twist it, and basically try to force this reel to ride up on top of this point here. So you're going to push down, and then kind of twist and just push it at the same time. Okay, now it makes a little bit more noise doing this, but I'm not having any issues with it actually trying to ride or jump off the rail here. So I'm probably exerting more pressure than you would normally, that would normally occur in a regular operating session. I mean, most of the time it's just going to go through like that. And it should be smooth, okay? You shouldn't see it wobble as it goes through the frog. If it's wobbling as it goes through the frog, that's the first indication that you may need to do some adjusting. But the final test for me is to take this thing and hold it down and kind of twist and push it at the same time. Try to force the wheel to ride over. And it seems to be pretty darn clean at this point, so same thing here. Kind of push it down a little bit and then see if you can get it to ride over. So far I think I've got a winner here. Anyway, those are some of the tweaks I did to get this thing to function properly. And now that I've got this the way I want to, actually now that I have this working the way I want, I'm going to actually cut the gaps. Before I do that, I'm going to put a few more spots of solder here. I mean, get all the solder on the frog so it's firmly in place. And I'm going to gap it here. Okay, oops. Oh, close up. More close-ups. Okay. I'm going to gap it here. And I'm going to gap it here. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add 2 more PC ties in here. And what I like to do is, like, before and after a gap, I like to have 2 soldered PC ties in place. Just because I've run into problems where when I was cutting, it tends to heat the rail. I mean, you're supposed to cut it fast, but you're supposed to cut it fast so it doesn't heat up the rail, so it melts the solder. But, you know, just to be safe and to keep things engaged, I put 2 PC ties and solder it down. A little bit of paranoia on my part, but I'd rather not have to resolder and re-gauge and retweak and just be done with it. So after I gap the rails, I'm going to put a few more spots of solder where I've only soldered the PC ties on one side. Then I'm going to cut the foil. Alright, electrically isolate the rails. And then before putting solder absolutely everywhere on this thing, I'm going to do a preliminary installation on the location on my layout and run an engine through it and see how that goes. So maybe a short train. Run it back and forth, backing it up and going through just to see, really make sure before I get this thing in place that this is solid and performing the way I want it to. So let me get to work on soldering this thing some more.